Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for our Safety Updates webinar series. My name is Lizbeth and I'm the Assistant Director of the Southern California NIOSH Education and Research Center. So the mission of our center is to contribute to the safety, health, and wellness of the workforce in Region 9 and across the nation. So this webinar series that we have for you today is designed with our mission in mind, and with the overall goal of bringing awareness to new and relevant workplace hazards and practices. So we have a really special webinar today. We're joined by special guest Oscar Amancio, who is Cal OSHA's Consultation Compliance Safety Officer, and Alba Vazquez, as always, the ERC's Course Director. So today we're going to tackle the question that you have all been pondering, which is what is the best way to becoming Cal OSHA compliant? So we have an information-filled webinar today. So we are going to ask that you please utilize the Q&A feature to ask our panelists any questions that you may have. We've reserved the last 15 minutes or so of the webinar to address your questions, and a lot of the questions you may have may also be answered throughout the presentation. So with that, I will go ahead and pass it over to Alba to get us started.
Hello, good morning, wonderful people. Thank you so much for your time. And of course, a million thanks to Cal OSHA, Oscar Amancio. Thank you for being here. Oscar, it's been my greatest pleasure to work with you and for so many years, just pick your brains and ask you a million questions. So I am so excited that we have you here today because, as you all know, we do this every first Friday of the month, of course, because of the 4th of July. Happy 4th of July, everyone. We moved this one to the 12th. So let's get to the nitty gritty, man. Let's talk about, is this really a good idea? Is it a good choice for your organization today? When is it a good idea? Some of you have already been part of the Golden Gate, but then all of a sudden your name is not on the website anymore. You're like, what happened to my name? I was on the Cal OSHA website. It's gone. So we're going to talk about those fun things today. Quick disclaimer. First of all, the webinar is being recorded so that we can forward it to all of those wonderful people that you want to have buy-in into this. Let's move towards Cal OSHA compliance. And also, I am not an attorney. I'm a consultant. I've been serving companies like yours since 2011 in my own consulting firm. And I heavily rely on Cal OSHA consultants. They are fantastic. You will learn today. If you received copy of the handout that so graciously Oscar sent all of us to read prior to this webinar, Cal OSHA Consultation is the branch of Cal OSHA that provides us with the help we need at the time we need them the most. Okay, so without further ado, you all know my credentials, so I won't go through those. These you saw on the website about the learning objectives today. Is it a good idea to invite Cal OSHA? And then we're going to talk about that Golden Gate program. What is that? What does it mean to be a participant of the Golden Gate program? And are there any other voluntary compliance programs out there? The benefits, the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll talk about those today. And you can look me up in the OSHA website with that authorization number. I am authorized both industries, general and construction, and I am bilingual. I'm happy to also come to your work sites and walk through with you and with Oscar, since you will see today, he's been 15 years with Cal OSHA. That is a long time. Oscar, you got to tell us about your adventures.
Oh.
5 years with enforcement, 10 with consultation branch, and prior to that as a safety consultant in workers' compensation, that wonderful workers' compensation world. So I want you to talk to us about today about your own experiences, and please go ahead and start introducing to us this wonderful branch that you work for, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, all. And again, my name is Oscar Amancio. Been with the division working on the enforcement side, and I'll tell you what, learned a lot the hard way. But you know, part of us, so my experience when I work in consultation, I bring all my knowledge, that workers' comp aspect, that enforcement aspect, to provide the best consultation that I know. And because a lot of the complaints that we get is, you know, on workers' comp, how things are being mishandled and how their, you know, claims are fraud. And so we always like to bring as much information as possible to help you with that aspect as well. But again, our core is getting to that IPP, making sure that it's effective. That is why we are out there, making sure that you're preventing those accidents from happening.
Wait a minute, you mentioned the magic word there. IIPP, Injury and Illness Prevention
Oh,
Program.
yes.
So would that be like the first program that you are going to ask us for when you get to a workplace?
That is the main focus. We do ask for all your safety programs, whether it be lockout, tagout, which is incredibly important as well. Hazard communication, heat illness, but IIPP is the core. That is the base of your safety program that everything falls down to. So when you have a good solid foundation with that IPP, the rest of the programs can be successful as well. If that IPP is not successful, it's going to be difficult to manage the others.
Absolutely. We're going to see why in a moment. But this is great then. Now I think at this point we all kind of get a view of, okay, so there's two main branches, the enforcement branch, which is who is called in case there's a fatality, right? Or there's a complaint where a safety and health officer believes there's some sort of serious injury that could occur, and then you show up, and that's enforcement, right?
Yes.
And those are the guys that will issue the fines and the penalties. Perfect. Okay. But you're not with that branch, you're with consultation.
And that's what makes my job so lovely. Generally, we have to be invited. We cannot get onto your site unless we are invited in. And when we go out there, we explain to you what we're here, what are the requirements on your end, what we're here to do. And one of those things that for the main caveat that we do have is that serious hazards that we encounter, just because they are serious, they are something that can amputate, cause death, cause permanent disfigurement. We ask that you correct those within 30 days, but we do give extensions up to 6 months if necessary. In the meantime, we do ask that interim measures are put in place to protect employees from that hazard in the meantime while you're making that permanent correction. But so we work with you as much as we can to make sure that you're providing that safe workplace and get those items corrected to get off of our little consultation list.
Wonderful. So that would be something that all of you participants can jot down. So you're not going to get fines and penalties because OSHA is going to work with you and, back and forth to see what are you going to put in place to reduce the hazards, to eliminate the hazards while you get to remediate the problem 100%. And there's those deadlines, right? The first 30 days and then up to 60 days by talking with you. Otherwise, it could go to the other side where it's like enforcement, right?
Yeah, up to 6 months.
Up to 6 months. Oh, fantastic. So this
hopefully it doesn't need to get to that point, but that is the option. I mean, you have that ability.
And this is great because that means for those organizations that right now that are considering calling you and having you walk the walk, they can actually start thinking budget. They already kind of know with all those words that you talked about, things that could amputate or that are hazardous enough to cause serious injury and illness. They already know, okay, do I have the budget so that I can start fixing those things that it's been hard up until this point? We get too distracted, but now we call them, we have that wonderful awareness and presence of mind that this is what we're doing right now. And all of a sudden that budget gets routed that way.
And, the one thing is, a lot of people think that serious hazards, they're very expensive to fix. I'll tell you what, I'd say 75% of the serious hazards that I encounter, $50 or less to fix.
Wow.
Simple things that you could do, bench grinders, for instance, that have guards moved, removed. Those are $18,000 citations that small little piece being adjusted is free. I mean, that's free. So that's the one, that gets kind of misinterpreted, that, generally most of the serious hazards we find very inexpensive to fix. And if you have a maintenance department that have some good creative guys, then that goes from 75% to maybe 95% being able to fix for under $50, under $100.
That's amazing. Like this one right on our screen, I found this worker wearing a harness and the straps were too high up on his chest, almost the neck, and also the straps were so loose because it's hot and he is operating a Tourette truck and they have to go way up there, and it's hotter up there. So they want to have the harness loose because it gets hot and we're, indoor heat illness. That's another thing that is coming up. And Liz will talk to us about putting together a wonderful webinar for you guys with more solutions. But in any case, when I find something like this could, if this man is to pick orders and fall, he could be seriously injured. And, I put my observations there, my recommendations. And one of those things is training, to take that time to retrain workers in just the donning of that harness. How expensive is that? That's exactly what Oscar is saying. So I love that. I love that some things are so simple, but if they're not fixed, they could cause serious injury or illness. And one of the things that I want to talk about is, when is it a good idea then to call you? Is it because I have too many injuries, or is it when, I have a good sturdy safety program right now. I've been working, let's say, with Alba, and I've been following her recommendations. So I feel like we could invite Oscar, invite OSHA consultation, and see where this goes. Is that a good point? Or could I even invite you because I'm having trouble putting together my safety program?
I mean, in my opinion, you can call us at whenever you want. I mean, I always prefer when you start a business, that's a good time to call us, because you're building that foundation. As you grow, you're able to have that structure to see hazards, correct hazards. You have that system in place to do so. As you're growing, and if the programs are not in place, that's when we tend to see a high amount of injuries. And with any injury, the severity, you're not going to know how severe that accident's going to be or that injury is going to be. So the earlier you can get to us, the better. So we can give you those recommendations of how to improve your safety programs, correct those serious hazards. And what I always tell employers, you want someone from the consultation side to observe and let you know that, hey, these are potentially serious hazards before you have that accident or you get a complaint, whether it be from ex-employee, a next door neighbor that doesn't like you, a customer that doesn't like you. They all come in from different areas. And when they do come in, if they find those hazards, it's something you could get cited on, when you could have called us and we could have pointed it out to you beforehand.
I love that you mentioned, even if you're starting your business, that's the best time, definitely. So for those of you, I hope right now you're really pondering, it's really a question of, in any case, as your business is going on right now today, you are still having to decide what part of your budget goes to your safety program. You're also having to assign resources and personnel and staff, and you're having to assign time for training. So if you're already having to do all of this, what better opportunity to do all of that, but under the direction of Cal OSHA consultation, right? So I love that. I love it. I love that there's no bad time to call you, basically.
Never. If you have a good, excellent program, call us in. Let's get a little verification on that. To me, it's just a great resource to have.
And if you have a bad one, also a great time to call us. We'll help you.
Most definitely. Even better, even more than. That's when you're talking about a lot of savings. I think we're going to probably get into that later. When you have an accident, it does cost you money. It does cost you money.
So why do I want to start? Let's talk about this magic. I love the word golden. Everybody loves golden stuff. So Golden Gate, let's talk about, why do we want to start here? What is it? How is it differ from other, programs? And do I really have to start here in the Golden Gate, or could I just call you without having in mind the Golden Gate?
So a Golden Gate is the recognition that an employer gets after performing the consultation and the consultant determining that this individual company had an effective safety program, or IIPP, at the time of the visit. It meets the bare minimum requirements of having an effective IIPP. They qualify for the Golden Gate. That's when they will receive it. And so looking into that, going through all the elements of the IIPP, if there's too many serious hazards that we encounter on a visit, generally that's going to knock you off and you're not going to qualify for that Golden Gate on this particular instance.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I just get the one chance then for you to visit, review, go over, and that's my one chance, and you will make a decision that day. And that's another question I had.
Not technically that day. We will look at review all the information, all the notes, and then later on make that determination.
Right. So that's another thing. It takes some time. Don't try and get answers from Oscar the moment he's there. So did I get it?
I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you.
I bet you have a lot of awesome stories to tell about how all employers get anxious and then we just want to know.
They want to know right then. Do we get it? Do we get it? I'm not going to tell you. I got to review the information and let you know later. I'll let you know later. So it's always a good surprise for them. Always a good surprise.
Nice. Okay, but I could call you and not necessarily to obtain Golden Gate status. I could just call you because I need help.
Yes, no. The consultation, no matter what, is what we're going to perform. Based on the consultation, that's what deems whether you deserve the Golden Gate recognition. So you can come out and perform, request it, and not even request it, go and say, like, I just want the consultation. At that point, we can tell you what you need to do. Call us up a year later and say, you know what, Oscar, I fixed everything you said I needed to do. My IPP is affected. Can you come out and do another consultation? At that point, we will perform another consultation, review your programs, and if you have an effective IPP, you will get rewarded with the Golden Gate at that point.
Wow, that's amazing. So if I get you correctly, it's a one-time chance per year.
Per year, yes.
Okay, awesome. So if you did not pass the test this year, you will hopefully, because you got all these recommendations and all that great stuff that you learned from, and you have just a list per se on what to work on. Next year, you will get the status.
Yes.
Awesome. So that's the goal, right?
Yes.
So can you talk to us a little bit about that eligibility criteria? Can you explain to all of us here, for employers, what is their eligibility criteria to participate in the Golden Gate? But before you jump into that, I just wanted to kind of tell the audience, because some of them have been part of the Golden Gate. That is the reason why their name drops from their website, right? Because it's a yearly thing. So you would have to be doing this and calling OSHA once a year. I would put it on my calendar. I got Golden Gate status on October 1st. So I know October 1st next year. Prior to October 1st, I have to call you so that I continue my stay and my name continues to be on that list.
Yes. And at that point too, if you're qualified, if you have a good overall program, we start promoting our other recognition programs that are a little more recognition, a little more involved as well in regards to qualifications and maintaining the qualifications. And I think we're going to get into that later as well.
Wow. So there has to be other good stuff in
yes.
connection with that, like more benefits for employers if they want to further their compliance programs.
Yeah, and generally the eligibility is just that you have one employee that's working on site and that it's considered high hazard. So whether through the process you're working with chemicals, machinery that possess that provide hazards, serious hazards, that's also a qualification in order to qualify for the Golden Gate.
Okay, so most of you guys on the call, because either you have machinery or equipment, you also have workers on site or on the field, and right now, would having workers out in the fields and exposed to heat, would that qualify the company to actually call you up for this?
If there's a significant amount of exposure, yes, because I mean that's one of our main focuses always, especially in the summertime, is heat. I believe we're actually opening up an office, particularly in Fresno in the Central Valley, for that reason. So I would definitely deem that as a high hazard job.
Wow. You know what? It's interesting because as we're talking about eligibility criteria, it's not a long list. So basically, almost anyone can apply.
Yes, most definitely. I mean, if you have a maintenance shop, I mean, there's equipment that you're dealing with. You'd lock out, tag out, maybe.
Right. That immediately brings you to that qualification to be able to call you up and say, hey, I would like to participate in the Golden Gate Partnership Program. Great. Fantastic. So what do you look at first? What are the components of this wonderful Golden Gate program? And what I can perceive from you then, this Golden Gate is kind of like your first step, right? So if you make the call, try and make the call also. If we could call just for consultations to get your help, but we also could call to get the Golden Gate. And so in our mind, we are gearing towards, okay, I have a good IIPP. This is what I'm going to present. This is what I have, etc. I'm going to show you how I'm doing this in order to get that Golden Gate. But what would you look at first? What are the main components or requirements of this Golden Gate program that we as employers need to look at or implement?
So the one thing generally when you either call to get a consultation from a consultant or part of a high hazard program, if your X model is over 125, you'll generally receive a letter from us that you need to respond to. But you'll get a consultant to make an appointment with you. So it's not just showing up at your door. And one of the things that we ask you prior to the visit is that you submit your IFPP, any other safety programs, lockout, tagout, heat illness, hazard communication, so that we can review them beforehand. And come up with our list of questions that we're trying to poke holes in your programs. Are you doing everything you say you're doing in here? And the other part that's very important is your loss history. So if you qualify for Cal OSHA logs, sending those. If you don't have Cal OSHA logs, sending your loss runs from your workers' comp carrier. That way we can get an idea of the types of injuries you're having beforehand, and we can possibly start thinking about solutions. What are going to be the best ways to prevent these types of accidents from happening again if you haven't developed some type of procedure or fix for them.
Wow, I bet you also see a lot of wonderful things there, because when you ask for Cal OSHA logs, filling out Cal OSHA logs heavily depends on the person that you have filling them out. And then if it's someone who is very thorough, you will see a good amount of detail, not too detailed as to violate privacy, but not so little detail that you cannot distinguish between 5 different low back injuries on that log, where one was due to a single lift and the other one was a team lift and the other one was because he was picking up something from the floor or from the rack system. And these are things that are important that we know with the experience that we have, but if we don't see them on your logs, that's something that you will also recommend to change and to improve, right?
Yes, I mean, it's always good to have, it's good just to even build the claims in regards to when you're looking at them. Are they coming from a certain department? Are they coming from a certain job task? That way it's kind of like a trend analysis where like, hey, this area seems to be popping up with what's going on in this area. What are we doing differently? Is it increase in production in this area? Do we need new staff? So those are things you want to look at when we're looking at and doing a kind of a loss analysis of the injuries. What's going on? Can we identify certain hotspots, certain departments? Maybe something's going on that's different. That's why there's an increase. So those are the things we try to help you identify. That way we can come up with some solutions. And the other part with the Cal OSHA logs is that a majority of the time, I'd say at least 50%, they're filled out incorrectly. And I know it's a little difficult to fill out. I mean, it's a lot of information in a lot of different areas, but we tend to find that a lot of them are not filled out correctly.
Yes, I do find that too. And sometimes employers, when I coming into asking for my services for the first time, when I tell them that I would like to spend at least half an hour to an hour training the person that is filling out their logs, if I see a lot of lack of compliance, they look at me like, what? But these are so easy. They're kind of plain language. And as we're discussing, it really does give you a lot of information that you can look at in order to improve your compliance program. So they're crucial, right? And if you were calling, or if enforcement ever knocked on your door, those logs become also a piece of documentation that will be examined, right?
And you can be cited. If they're filled out incorrectly, you will be cited on that.
No! What do you mean be cited? So if I fill them incorrectly, that actually brings fines if OSHA enforcement was to show up?
Unfortunately, yes. That is a citable offense.
Wow. So if I start making the same mistake over and over and over my 5-year logs, that will be something what will pile up, right?
Well, I mean, generally it's going to be one citation, but you have a lot of instances. So if it's done for 5 years, then it's 100% of the time you're making the mistake.
All right. So what document? So here is one of the things that I wanted to discuss with you. So if I call Cal OSHA with the intent of getting your help for a partial inspection because I need help with my lockout tagout program, that's something that you can do, and it is outside of the Golden Gate, right?
So we can assist in regards to discussing what are the requirements, what you need to do. But unfortunately, employers know their equipment. So for us to identify, what are the power, how many types of energy does this have? How do you block it out? Those are things that require the expertise of the employer, of the employees that operate it. But we can give you general direction on how to develop those hazardous energy control procedures. And that's one of the misnomer, I guess, of, you could say, the lockout tagout program. Generally, we see this lockout tagout program that's 6-7 steps. That's all that employers have. The lockout tagout program is a little more in depth. So what it requires for every individual piece of equipment that's either going to be cleaned, repaired, adjusted, set up, any of those items, you need to have procedures to protect employees to make sure that it's at a zero energy state. So if it's electric and hydraulic, I can unplug or I can shut off at the electrical panel, but how am I going to release the energy? That's hydraulic or pneumatic.
Right.
That's the next part. So you need to have written procedures detailing those aspects to protect employees.
And so although the employer has to assume that responsibility, you can help us with that portion of guiding the employer as to having a compliant lockout tagout documentation. But
Yes.
where I was going with this question is, so that would be a partial consultation. But when you go out there for the Golden Gate, then you do look at more documents. It's not just one portion of your facility, but then you look into just the IIPP. If you have ladders, you're going to look at the portable ladder program, safety program. And people are looking at me like, portable ladder safety program. What do you mean? Well, yes, there are components to it, right? It's not just the inspection, or it's having an inventory. It's having the training for compliance per the actual regulation, all of that stuff. So would you look at all of those documents?
Any hazards that that an employer has, most definitely ladders being one of the ones that create a lot of serious accidents. And I always like to bring this up to employers just to so they can realize the importance of it. I think it was maybe 5-6 years ago, within a 4-month span, in California, there was 2 fatalities from a 4-foot ladder.
Wow.
4-foot ladder, 2 fatalities within a 4-month span. It depends on how you fall. So the higher you get, the more hazardous it can be. But it just depends on how you fall, what you fall on. So it's always important to make sure with those that ladder, making sure that they're getting inspected, making sure that employers are following the rules, not reaching sideways, not getting on those top 2 rungs on an A-frame ladder. It's very important. Making sure they secure the ladder when they're climbing up on an extension ladder. Very important that those rules are followed, and that that employers management is ensuring that they get followed.
Wow. So you will ask to see those documents, and if there's nothing documenting, for example, inspections or how many types of different ladders they have, that's something that you will suggest, right?
Oh, most definitely. That I list as a serious hazard, in particular because most of the time, most companies say that, oh yeah, we train our employees. And then when I find a damaged ladder, I'm thinking, well, what do you train them on? There's something missing, obviously. The training's not effective, or there's not procedures in place that when you identify a hazard, you know exactly what to do.
I would say, oh, this damaged ladder you see here, this is the one I use in my training to tell them what to look for. This is a horrible ladder.
And I actually have a very funny story with this. This was a warehouse I was working with, and we're doing a consultation and we're doing the hazard survey. And I'm walking through and I see a couple of damaged ladders being stored on a storage rack. And I look and I said, oh, look, these ladders are damaged. And they said, oh, yeah, that's where we store our damaged ladders. I said, okay, fine, if that's your process. I go, I'd like to see some type of tag maybe on them. Well, we walk through the facility, come back through that same aisle, and as we're walking back, what do we observe? An employee grabbing one of those ladders off the rack.
Of course.
At that point, I didn't have to say anything. They just kind of looked down and said, yeah, we'll get rid of them. And I'm like, yes. Those damaged ladders, get rid of them. Don't leave them inside because employees will think they're okay to use.
Yes, ladders, we could go on talking about ladders forever. And I know you have such an expert eye when you look at ladders, because I've seen you out there, and it's just great. So these are some of the things that you will look at. So I hope that we did get some of these questions answered in regards to these components, the documents that you will be asked to have ready. And if you don't have any of these documents, right now is the time to say, hey, Alba, we discussed this during the webinar. I am missing a bloodborne pathogens policy. I'm missing my indoor heat illness prevention program. Let's work towards having those policies in place. And by the way, don't rely on your attorney's law firm or your usual consultant or your insurance to just spit out policies for you, because many times they don't marry what you are truly doing in practice. And that's something that Oscar was explaining right now. Once he looks at your documents, if I understand you correctly, you want to make sure that whatever is promised in those documents is what happens out in the field. And how would you know that, by the way? How would you know that it really jives?
Generally through talking to employees. So when the consultation starts, I'm going to have a conversation with the employer, get an idea of what they're doing, what they think they're doing for their employees in regards to safety. And as I do the safety walkthrough through observation, I'm looking for things, looking for holes.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm out there, I'm putting on my enforcement hat, and I'm trying to be an advocate for the employer. Like, look, if I find it, you can fix it, better off you are. So when I talk to employees, again, I'm going to go into the different aspects of the safety programs, safety data sheets, forklift training, lockout, tagout training. I go into those different aspects and get those key details. So if I have information that's different between what the employer's telling me and what the employee's telling me, there's a hole in your program. Those are the things that we're there to identify. That way you fix them. And with that, accidents are prevented. And if enforcement does come out, you're going to be okay for the most part.
Awesome. I love it. So here it is. These are the great gold nuggets for you guys today. This is really take a look at the programs you already have. Make sure that the person who is administering those programs, most of the time you're naming someone in each of the programs as the person who administers that portion of your safety program. Make sure that they know what that policy is all about and that they're actually doing whatever they promised there out in the field. That is wonderful. I like this question. So Oscar, are you going to come over and live with us, or are you going to be there just a few hours, or will you be there the whole week? Are you going to just park there and bring your sleeping bag and just camp out?
No, we don't want that, and you don't want that either. So generally, every consultation varies in time. I've had some go an hour and a half for very small employers. I've had some go 6 hours for large employers with large operations.
Right.
So it varies on you. It varies on your questions. It varies on your programs, what you have in place, the questions you have for us. So you can't give an exact determination. It's always going to vary. And we do interview employees. Again, that's how we verify our employees receiving that information that you're training them on. Is it received? Are they understanding it? Or again, is there some type of hole? Do we need to do something to make sure that when you're giving those presentations or giving those safety trainings, what's going to get them to understand it so that they remember it?
Right. So you know what? This is one of the portions of calling Cal OSHA that I think employers are most wary about because, they don't know how employees will respond. I encourage you to look at this differently. I think that it is a great opportunity to hear employees out. Many times they are shy about coming and talking to you, although I have to say I work with some of my clients have a wonderful system and a great policy, an open door policy where they continuously, when I'm out there, I'm repeating to them, this is the way we report concerns and remember. And then I will throw out names, so-and-so, and it happens to be the owner of the company or the CEO or the president, or he is open to coming out to you on Mondays or every month. Remember, he is going to be here and you can come up and ask questions. You can talk to him privately. You can go to his office and he will make time to talk to you about your concerns. And, it's really nice to see when that relationship is really, truly happening. And companies have no problem having you interview their employees because they know they'll do fine. And if there's something that the employee will say that, hey, you know what? I wish they do this differently. They will take it as a suggestion, not as a complaint. They will not take it as the employee ratting out on them or just kind of tattletaling, It's just more like, no, these employees truly care for our safety programs. This is the type of environment and safety culture that we have. And so I really urge you to look at it that way, where your employees are the most valuable resources that you have for suggestions and to help you improve your safety program. What do you think, Oscar?
No, and just as you say that, I mean, that's the whole point. And when a part of a very effective, when we talk about an effective IVP and then to the other recognition programs that are a little bit higher, the systems that they have in place, the employee won't wait for me to go out there and say, hey, I think we should do this. They're going to feel comfortable enough at that point that I can talk to management and say, here's my suggestion. I think this will help us out. They're going to have that confidence because they're aware. They know that the company wants everybody to be safe, work safe, so they feel comfortable enough to ask those questions instead of waiting for a consultant or Cal OSHA consultation consultant to come out, and then they're feel able to verbalize their suggestions. So.
Right.
And it is that's exactly what you want. You want management to be part of that process, to show
Right.
that we do care. We want you to be safe. And yeah, I mean, everybody wins when you're safe. You talk about workers' comp costs. You know, one of the things I mentioned recently was, you know, accidents for vehicular. You know, that doesn't only affect your workers' comp because you get, you know, workers' comp rates go up because you have to pay for the medical bills, any time lost for that employee. That goes on workers' comp. Your auto also takes a hit as well. So your insurance rates go up on both sides. So do what you can when the employees that are driving, making sure you have a good you know, driver safety program that you can monitor employees that maybe sometimes driving erratic. Try to control that behavior.
Yes, that's awesome. I think I did a talk this week for an HR network firm, and I was looking at how much they were talking about the pool, the DMV pool. What's it called when you get reports of your drivers and how they're driving? I'll come up with that name later, but you have to have it. It's not that expensive. And it's really good to have as part of that defensive driving program. So I like those suggestions. And let's get into these incentives. Is this really something that I want to do? Will it pay back? What is the return on investment?
So, I mean, and this is where it multiplies. You know, first and foremost, your experience modification factor. I don't want to, how much time we have to go into that, but basically you get compared to every companies that are working in your same industry. Anything you score above 100 is what workers' comp can charge you for. So if you're at a 150X mod, you're getting charged 50% more for your workers' comp than you should be. So that when you implement programs for reduce accidents, starts to go down. So you start saving money there. Workers' comp, I used to be a consultant. So one of the things we would do with companies with high X mods, we'd go out there, like ask them what they're doing. We look at their injuries in the past. What are you doing to control these hazards? And if they have good things implemented, or if they've corrected them completely, where we don't even do this process anymore, we give you credits. So that's another way you can save when you come up for renewal. I tell this to employers, when you come up for renewal, show them my report. Let them know that you fixed everything, and hopefully they can come back and actually give you some type of savings, some type of discounts for implementing and all those items and correcting all those hazards.
You've seen this, Oscar? Do insurance carriers, workers' comp actually work with you after they see that you've participated in the Golden Gate and say, we're going to give you this much discount or reduction in your premiums? Because, and for those of you that have never heard what Oscar is talking about, an XMOD, an experience modification rate, is a number that your insurance will know and they will have, right? And it's based on your losses. How many injuries are you having, work-related injuries that your employees are suffering? And when you're above average, you go above that 1.0, right?
Yes.
And the higher that number is, the more you're paying. So this is wonderful information. Can you talk to us a little bit more than if you've seen actually those reductions, those savings for employers?
So again, when I worked in workers' comp, that was one of the things I would do. We would generally set an appointment with prospective clients, do a review of their programs, do a safety walkthrough. And again, if we see their losses and they put guards in places where there was an amputation or they put a guard in place, well, this accident is gone. It's never going to happen again. So they give credits. In regards to what the amount of credits are, that's another department, but we would give credits. So that's why I always recommend show them the report, let them read it, let them know that, hey, we've done this, we've implemented, our IPP is now effective. We've implemented all the recommendations that Oscar or the consultant made. You know, as of this point on, we've had one accident, we've had 0 accidents. So show them those things. And again, depending on the workers' comp carrier, it doesn't hurt to ask.
That's great. So you do have those financial incentives to look forward to. And also, when you're in your bidding processes, right? If your name is up on that website as a Golden Gate Cal OSHA participant, how is that going to look?
Again, it's going to put a feather in your hat right there. It's going to basically say that, you know, our program's effective, and more and so if you start going for that sharp, that VPP. But it does show that you are working with employees, you care about your employees, and the savings should come at that point.
You're throwing some names there, VPP and Sharp, and okay, let's get into that, because of course, when I talk about on this slide, intangible benefits, of course, you know that the moment you start really working on your safety program, employees, those are the intangible. You may not see it on a piece of paper or on the actual expense ledger, right? But you will see it because your employees know they're working for a place whose name is on the website as a Golden Gate participant. They know that they can go to work and expect to come back with all their fingers and their toes attached and their organs hopefully safe and not with damage that will express itself in the form of cancer many years later. That kind of stuff, which really, really plays an important part in the morale and the attitude of how people go to work.
I've worked with companies in the past where they, instead of providing cut-resistant gloves, they provide with regular gloves. And I mean, you just have a rotation of employees going to the clinic, getting stitches on their fingers, coming back. The morale was just absolutely horrible. And then sometimes when you go back to some of these facilities and you talk to those old employees, they mention like, hey, things have gotten a lot better. And those are the things when you start making the changes, implementing the IPP, showing employees that you do care about their health, their attitudes change as well. They're going to be they're going to participate. They're going to want to follow rules.
Right. And for those of you that are out there saying that it's really hard to find people to hire right now, well, imagine if it's your own employees bringing people to work there because they know that you have the Golden Gate. They know that you really care about their safety. That's another huge benefit. Awesome. So how does CalOSHA support employers in achieving and maintaining it? So right now, I looked at this probably yesterday or this morning. There's 68 sites listed. Make sure your name is there, guys. So it's only 68 sites. I wish all of my clients were on this list. So we're working towards, and some of you are. So thank you. Thank you. And congratulations for those of you that have applied and are all still part of the Golden Gate. But how can we maintain status?
What's available to you is on the phone. You can call any of the consultation offices, talk to a consultant, any questions you may have. Call in, request those consultations from us. If you don't get it 1 year, call us up again the next year, and hopefully you'll qualify. If not, we'll write you another report, let you know where the holes we found. You correct those and come on again on the third time. So the support is there. It's a matter of taking advantage of our services. We're phone call away. You can, if you don't want to know that you called, put us on call block. It doesn't matter.
And listen, if for some of my clients, and I am very grateful to you guys, we've been working together, and then you want me to also be present when Oscar or CalOSHA consultations there. And by the way, you can request a particular compliance, safety, and health officer. In this case, because I have introduced Oscar to other clients, or he has helped us with other things, employer themselves say, hey, I want him to show up. You can do that, no problem. Is that correct?
Yes, if it's in a certain region, we have our certain regions that we cover. For me, going out to LA, a majority of LA County, maybe it's stretching. I'm down in Oceanside, working out of the San Diego office, but I do delve into Orange County and maybe parts of LA County as well.
Well, and I got to tell you, I'm just going to quickly read one of the experiences from one of our clients. And of course, he said, this, my experience with Oscar Amancio from CalOSHA has been outstanding. Our CEO aimed to achieve the Golden Gate certification for a janitorial company, which necessitated an OSHA consultation. Initially, we felt a bit apprehensive. Everybody gets the nerves. Everybody gets nervous, of course. But you get to it, right? He says we felt a bit apprehensive about having an OSHA audit of our safety program, but we were determined to pursue this award. Oscar's visit exceeded my expectations. From the moment he arrived, he put me at ease and explained the Golden Gate certification process clearly. He reviewed our documentation and provided highly positive feedback. While there were a few corrections needed, Oscar made it straightforward to address them. Overall, it was a fantastic experience, and Oscar was a pleasure to work with. We look forward to our next meeting, and we are optimistic about becoming CalOSHA award-winning janitorial company. Did I mention, P.S., did I mention how awesome Oscar is? So I wanted to read that specifically because you were invited today. You were so kind to allot this time for us, and we are truly grateful. He did have a fabulous experience. I really wanted to read this because it comes from someone like you guys, and I appreciate you doing this for us and taking the time to show us your experience and letting us know so that more employers in California get to call CalOSHA consultation. Mind you, not everybody's Oscar, of course, but you will get a great experience. You will get a different consultant depending if you're in the LA, Northern California, wherever you're at. Call it per your establishment because it's different regions per your locations, right?
Yes. I mean, get
Okay.
familiar with the consultation staff. There's generally 5 consultants, and as of earlier this month, we've fully gotten our offices fully staffed. So, everybody's gonna be able to respond. You're gonna see a lot of good activity coming out of every individual office.
Wonderful. So, and tell me a little bit about the Golden Gate. If I have an incident or a complaint, something happens, how does that help? If I am a Golden Gate participant and then all of a sudden, unfortunately, let's say really out of the blue, something happens and it causes serious injury and illness, and one of my employees goes to the hospital. What then?
Okay, so even if well, let's say even prior to this, if you have any type of open inspection, whether it be for an accident or complaint, we cannot come on site. Enforcement has priority over consultation in regards to if they're having an open case, we cannot come on site. But if you're working with us, you get a Golden Gate and then subsequently have the accident. I can't say whether or not it's going to have an impact. It's going to depend on the enforcement officer themselves. But the one thing I can say is that if you've done everything that we recommended, corrected the serious hazards, making sure that your IPP is in place, there's a good chance that if that accident did occur, you're going to have that good defense, that Independent Employee Act defense to protect you from citations. And that is only can be done with an effective IPP.
That is huge. That is huge. And believe me, getting that seal that your IIPP is an effective program, it means that you are thorough. And, for those of you that, because my clients, I am proud to say they work at this hard all day long, every month, every day. It's an ongoing thing. And how you do anything is how you do everything, really. So a lot of the times those IIPPs reflect how the company is. And I love to say that a lot of you guys are really working towards that effectiveness of your safety programs. And so with that in mind, Oscar, can you tell us a little bit about this Cal-OSHA partnership program? So what levels do I look forward to after I've gotten the Golden Gate?
So once you have the Golden Gate, the next step up would be the SHARP program, which is good for general industry and construction. The requirements for those is that if you're an establishment, general industry, that you've been in business for 3 years and at least 1 year at a particular site. And the requirements is that you have an XMOD, your total recordable rate or DART at 0.9 or below for at least 2 out of the 3. And I think I have this written down. 12 months without any willful, serious, repeat or willful repeat citations.
So that's kind of like the history with Cal-OSHA?
That would be with the history of Cal-OSHA.
Ladies and gentlemen, you do build a history with Cal-OSHA. And they do know your numbers. So this is something that should be, it's kind of like having a clear slate.
Yes.
Okay.
And the other 2 aspects that are going to be good for all of them is going to be that there's no incentive programs that are tied in to discourage the reporting of accidents or injuries. That will get you tossed out right away because we want those to be reported. That way you're aware of those hazards so that you can correct them.
Right. So if I have an incentive program that says huge sign on my warehouse roll-up door that says 25 days, no, I'm sorry, 363 days without an incident or injury, pizza party next Friday.
Yeah, generally that'll get you kicked out of the program.
Why is that a bad idea?
Because what you're promoting is that they don't report accidents. And and this is just an experience I had while working in workers' comp. This was a large field labor contractor where they had this program, $25,000 in prizes and gifts at the end of the year. And the first year they were successful, no injuries. So they did it again the next year and they had an injury. A gentleman injured his knee, didn't report it because he didn't want to mess things up. And needless to say, by the time he actually reported, because he was in so much pain, required 3 or 4 surgeries, the claim ended up being maybe $300,000-$400,000. So it basically backfired at the end.
Yeah. That's bad news. That's sad. That is sad, but that is how these things can really play. You just need to really look at your incentive program, talk to me, talk to Cal-OSHA consultation in order to get some better ideas There's better ways of doing that. Wonderful. So the Golden Gate, it's interesting how in the website there's this progression where you go from Golden Gate and it goes backwards instead of Golden Gate here to there. But Golden Gate to the Sharp and Sharp to the VPP then, and VPP is way harder to obtain, right?
Yes. So from Golden Gate, again, it's the bare minimum requirements of having an effective IPP. Sharp exceeds the minimum. VPP is far exceeds the minimum.
Oh.
So there's a step up for each one. And you notice that we have Cal VPP construction, and then Cal VPP is a separate department within the consultation realm. They have our own little group, and they're general industry, public sector, large corporations generally. Their requirements are a little different than ours. I had to do a little research on this because they're not completely separate, but separate from what we do in the individual consultation offices. But their requirements, I don't want to get too, I mean, it's basically 60 months without a fatality, 12 months without a contractor on your site having a fatality, 6 months of working in good faith with enforcement. So if you do have an accident, you're in good faith, you're working with them, you're correcting those serious hazards, and then you make available that safety professional, because there's always a safety professional that's running the programs at these individual corporations. They make themselves available to conduct inspections, reviewing programs at other VPP sites, being a mentor, doing outreach for the VPP program. So those are some of the requirements that they have.
Fantastic. Wow, a lot to know here. And by the way, that safety professionals within the company, right?
Yes, within the
That's
company.
somebody, you cannot just call up someone else and say, oh, hey, Alba, can you just come out right now? No, that means within the company, you have somebody who is doing that role on a constant basis and working in good faith. And when you say good faith, can you elaborate a little bit more on what that means?
So when you have an inspection, if you're providing the documents that they're requesting on a timely basis without an issue, that goes as in good faith. Correcting the hazards in a good, timely manner, that goes into good faith. A lot of these things, I don't want to say if anybody that's had an inspection before, part of the form that you'll fill out, one of the aspects that we grade and give employers credits for is good faith. Are they working with us? Has it been problematic to interview employees, to get their documents, to get their Cal OSHA logs or their safety programs?
You hide your employees and put them in a
Oh, yes, I want to go into that, but yes. So those are the things that qualify as good faith.
Right. This is awesome. I really love it. I did have a client ask about the Cal VPP and got into a list of things that they do need to have. Yes, I understood it's quite comprehensive, but I also understood that one of the major benefits to getting to those higher levels of compliance also brings the issue where if you have an incident, a fatality, an injury, or someone complains that the inspectors or enforcement, because you're working or you're a VPP site, they will turn around and they will not inspect, right?
Well, the
Or clarify for me,
Cal
please.
VPP and the Cal VPP construction, what they do is for programmed inspections, you get an exception. Programmed inspections are based on high hazard industry list. So there are certain ACE codes that have high injuries rates, and that gets adjusted on a yearly basis. The high hazard program just responds to those. They'll just pick a day, an industry like, hey, we're going to do this week. And they go out and do inspections randomly on from this list, and then having a high XMOD as well. You are exempt from those types of inspections. Cal VP, and then during this time, if there is an accident or complaint, again, that takes priority. They're going to come in.
I've had 3 recent clients who had a surprise visit. And they're because they're high hazard. So one of them was a landscaping company and they have tree trimmers, etc. And another one was manufacturing. They just showed up. And mind you, they did fantastic. And then probably a few months later, they had an incident. But nevertheless, those are the ones then that you're exempt from. And trust me, they are also nerve-wracking because when Cal OSHA shows up at your door because of a program inspection, you're scrambling, and I don't want that for you. I want you to say, hey, sure, come on. We're used to this. We just had Oscar work with us last month or 3 months ago. So these are some of the great benefits that I see. Oscar, I want to thank you for your time.
One more thing, just with that, just even for the consultation process, while you're working with us in consultation, you are exempt from those program inspections as well. So while we're working together, so once I get there the first day and we start working together, we start reviewing your programs, I see a few serious hazards. Once you correct those hazards, that's officially when the consultation ends. So during that time span, you are exempt from program inspections as well. So that's another benefit. You're exempt for that time, unless there's an accident or complaint, then they have priority. But program inspections, you're exempt during that time span.
That is huge. I love that. Thank you for clarifying that. It's wonderful information. I really love it. We have a few minutes to tackle some questions. If we don't get to all of them, please let us know by way of email, and Liz will make sure to get them to us. But go ahead. Does anyone, Liz, do you have anybody there with some questions?
No, I don't have any questions, but if you do, please feel free to use the chat feature or the Q&A feature, and then I will go ahead and read them to our panelists. And if you don't have a question right now, I will go ahead and put the email that I monitor for our center, and we can address these questions to the panelists after our webinar, and we can bring you that information as well too.
Great. So just last but not least, remember, the way we're working sometimes is you guys feel ready, and then you make the call and we work together. Some of the issues that maybe OSHA consultation will point out is something that we've been working with together. I've had that in the past happen where say, remember we're working on that policy and we decided against it because we had this other priority. Is a good time to retake that project and continue improving your health and safety program. So this is great. I am very grateful for your time, Oscar. I'm super grateful to OSHA. I always tell everyone to see OSHA as, you know, that helper, that extra help that you need. And who better to ask questions to than the people who make the regulations, right?
Yes, I agree, completely agree. And again, for consultation, have us observe, identify the hazards so that you can correct them and not have to worry about it as much when enforcement were to show up.
So thank you again to all of you. We are closing today then. I get everybody. Oh, thank you so much for the comments out there about getting your IIPP ready. So when OSHA shows up and they ask for your IIPP, just getting it put together in a way that is effective and it really matches what you're doing in practice is crucial. And so I help my clients with that, especially when OSHA is making suggestions. If you need help, you're not alone. I'm here. There's also your insurance carriers. There's also OSHA who can guide you by the hand. So we can always work together. We're a team and we appreciate you guys. Thanks for taking the time today. We'll see you. You do have CEUs, right, Liz? For we ask you to fill out the survey first if you want to go into that. And thank you, everyone. You guys are posting awesome comments there, and we're very appreciative.
Yes, thank you, everyone. So after the webinar, you will be receiving a link to the evaluation. We really appreciate any feedback that you have on the webinar. The link to the evaluation will also include the link for today's recordings. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to email us. So I will go ahead and stop the recording with that being said.